Hello, fourth graders. So you've been working really hard on developing ideas about your characters. And before we move on today, I'd like you just to take a few seconds and go back through the notes that you've already written, either in your Post-its or in your notebook, about the ideas you have about your characters. And go ahead and rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. How do you think you're doing with developing really strong, grounded fourth grade ideas about characters? And don't be afraid to give yourself a low number, because this just means you're being critical of your work, and that's exactly how you become a better reader. So press pause just for a few seconds, do that work, and then press play when you're ready to continue. So today we are going to continue our work with growing ideas about characters, but this time we're going to be noticing authors' craft. There are certain things that authors do to help us readers get to know their characters. We've got to be smart about paying attention to them so that we can get these ideas. Okay, so what I want you to know today, readers, is that another way to grow significant, grounded ideas about your character is to notice anything that the author seems to spotlight. And what I mean by that is that if you notice anything that keeps coming up in your story over and over again, that's what you want to pay attention to and notice. Maybe it's a line that the character says over and over again. Maybe it's a gesture that the character has, or perhaps it's an object that keeps coming up in the story. If there's one thing we know about authors, it's that they don't do anything willy-nilly with their stories. They put everything just the right way that they want it on purpose in their story. So when they start to emphasize something like that and it keeps coming up, you want to pause, pay attention, and ask yourself why. What's the meaning behind this? Here's an example. If you're reading a story and let's say the main character is this guy who always seems to have a hat. And he puts the hat on, he takes the hat off, he runs his fingers around the rim, he dusts it off. I mean, he even puts it by his bed at the end of the day before he goes to sleep. Now, do you think the author just threw those ideas in there without any thought behind them? No way. There's a reason that hat is in that story, and the author's trying to give us some clues about that character. That hat is probably a symbol for something having to do with the character. So that's a moment we want to pay attention to. Okay, so let's try this with Sistine. I'm going to model for you the way that I try to develop characters, theories about characters using this. So let me zoom into this work that I've put together about Sistine. I tried to think of some things that I've noticed throughout the book about Sistine that stand out to me about her. So I wrote down that she wears this pink frilly dress. She's named after a famous chapel in Italy called the Sistine Chapel. And she speaks differently than other people, around town. And she also seems to have angry eyes. So let's start by thinking about these things. And you know what? I want to just work with the pink frilly dress idea. Does the author make sort of a big deal about this detail? I think you would agree with me that yes, this frilly dress keeps coming up over and over again. So here's the big question. Why does Kate DiCamillo make a big deal out of this detail? Okay, so if I'm going to use these clues to grow an idea about Sistine, I'm thinking, how might this dress matter? I like to use the words could it be when I'm trying to think about this. So I might say, could it be that no one else in this town wears dresses to school, so wearing one makes her unusual? Could it be that, the frilly dresses make her stick out like a sore thumb? I think I might be onto something here. So readers, what's the next thing that we have to do once we come up with an idea or a theory about a character. I hope you are saying that we need to find some evidence in the book to support our idea or theory. So let's see. I want to give you a chance to do that. Could you pause here and see if you can come up with any details from the book, Tiger Rising, of course, that might support that idea that wearing these frilly dresses make her stick out. Okay, press pause to do that work and then play when you're ready to come back. So, do you see how readers have to stop and ask themselves, why might the author have given Sistine these details? What I want you to see is that ideas about characters that readers come up with don't just come out of thin air like dandelion fluff floating around. They're actually grounded in the text themselves. So what you want to do is see, does this idea have any connection to anything else that comes up in the book? And if you look over here again, I'm thinking the answer is yes. That pink frilly dress does make her stand out like a sore thumb. What about her name? Her name is completely unusual, so that makes her different as well. And then the way she speaks, so all of these things match, and it all makes me think that Sistine doesn't really fit in. Now, what about the angry eyes? Okay, so that doesn't seem like it really fits in with my theory or my idea already. But as we read on, you will see that that definitely is going to come into play and it will have a connection. But it's going to be something that we talk about a little bit later. It's going to show us that Sistine has different sides to her. And that is something that fourth graders do pay attention to, but we'll get into more of that later on. Okay, so I hope that you understand how we notice things that are reoccurring or getting a spotlight shown on them by the author. We pause and we ask, what might that mean? And could it be, right? And then we have to go back and see if we can support that idea with information from the text. So what I'd like you to do right now is to see if you could do the same work with Rob. I'd like you to jot down a couple of ideas, just like I did here with Sistine. Jot down some things that you're noticing about Rob. It can be things that he says, his actions, gestures. It could be objects that keep coming back about Rob. And then ask yourself, what might this mean? Use that phrase, could it be? And then see if you can come up with an idea. And then lastly, try to see if you can find at least 2 different text details to support this idea. Do this work with your partner if you can. If not, maybe just jot down these ideas on your own in your notebook. Press pause to do this work and then play to continue. Okay, readers, I'm wondering if you noticed that Rob's rash keeps getting brought up. So the rash, his habit of not thinking about things. And what about stuffing his feelings into this imaginary suitcase? That gets brought up a lot too. So the idea that you might have come up with is something about Rob being isolated or feeling separate from everyone else. Or maybe you focused on this idea that Rob is passive. He doesn't stand up for himself, right? So what I want you to take with you from this lesson is that it will always benefit you to pay attention to your character's motivations, struggles, changes, their triumphs. How do they win over the things that are holding them back? But it will also usually pay off to pay attention to those things that keep repeating in the story. Those things that it seems like the author is just emphasizing or putting a spotlight on. And this is what will help you develop these big, strong, substantial ideas that we need to do in fourth grade about the characters in our books. We want to avoid those fluffy ideas that can just blow away in the wind like the dandelion fluff. We want to make sure that they're grounded in the text. So you need to go back and find several places, at least 2 places in your text where you can support this idea. Now, I am going to show you the parts that we're focusing on here today with our chart right here. These are the steps that you want to follow to pay close attention to develop these ideas. So you want to notice anything about a character that the author repeats, and of course, pause and ask yourself why. Why is it important? Next, notice anything that is repeated, those details like character traits or features or objects. And again, ask yourself why. What meaning must it have? Okay, readers, so you're going to go off and read and try this work with your own independent book. Make sure you have those Post-it notes handy and a pencil, your notebook too, because these ideas are big ideas. They might not even fit on a Post-it note. You might have to write long in your notebook. Use the timer that's in your digital notebook to help you with time management, and be sure that you leave enough time to complete the share that you find at the end of this lesson in your digital reader's notebook. Okay, off you go. Get to doing this high-level fourth grade work.